Let me talk to you about the oldest con in the book. Not the 3-card Monte on the corner, not the pyramid scheme your cousin got into. I'm talking about something far more sophisticated. Something that got you in your feelings, got you in your wallet, and got you at the ballot box. I'm talking about the performance economy. Here's how it works. You find an audience with a need, a hunger. Maybe it's teenage girls who want to feel chosen. Maybe it's a working class that's been economically gutted and wants to feel seen. You don't actually meet that need. You perform meeting it. You package the fantasy so well that the audience can't tell the difference between the real thing and the production. And they pay. Every time. Start with boy bands. And before I go any further, this is not about anyone's sexuality. That is not the point, and it never was. The point is the architecture of the con. Here's what actually happened. Music industry executives, men like Lou Pearlman, who by the way was later convicted of running one of the largest Ponzi schemes in American history, which should tell you everything about this relationship with honesty that he had. These men did not discover friendship. They manufactured it. They held auditions. They selected strangers. They put those strangers in rehearsal rooms and gave them choreography, gave them coordinated outfits, gave them a name, and then told the world these were brothers, a unit, inseparable, built from the ground up on authenticity and mutual love. That was the first lie. The second lie was the product itself. The product being sold to millions of teenage girls was heterosexual accessibility. The fantasy that this young man, who just sang directly into the camera, who just pointed at you specifically in that music video, could want you back. That fantasy was not incidental to the revenue model. It was the revenue model. Every concert ticket, every poster, every album, every piece of merchandise was monetizing that manufactured desire. And in many cases, the men performing that desire were either suppressing who they actually were or hadn't yet fully reckoned it with themselves. Inside a commercial machine that had no interest in their truth and every interest in their performance. The executives knew what they were packaging. They packaged it anyway. The performer's actual identity was irrelevant. What mattered was whether they could sell the fantasy convincingly enough to fill arenas. So you had two victims and one architect. The girls who spent real money on a feeling that was never real. The performers who spent years inside an identity that was not theirs. And the men in suits who counted the revenue and called it entertainment. That's the performance economy in its purest form. Now fast forward. J.D. Vance, Yale Law, Venture Capital, San Francisco. A man who called Donald Trump, in his own private words, potentially America's Hitler. That's not interpretation. That's the man's own written assessment of another man. Then something happened. And he won't tell you what. Ask him directly and you get, it was a long road. No specifics, no intellectual accounting, no moment of reckoning he could point to. Just a long road. You know what that tells me? The road wasn't intellectual. The road was transactional. And here's where it gets almost poetic. Vance justifies his alignment with Trump by telling you, and I need you to hear how he frames this, that Trump gives people gifts when they come into his office. That's his evidence of character. That's his proof of humanity. That a powerful man hands people objects when they visit. Think about what that reveals. Not about Trump, about Vance. A man who cannot offer himself offers things instead. A man who needs acceptance but cannot generate it authentically substitutes the transaction for the relationship. The gift is the deflection. And Vance, Yale educated, pattern recognition should be second nature, accepts the gift as proof of the man. Because Vance needed to be chosen too. He built an entire identity around Appalachian roots, toughness, authenticity. while his own grandparents left Appalachia at 13 and 16, chasing the same economic opportunity he now tells their descendants they should have found on their own. The brand and the biography don't survive contact with each other. And just like the boy band machine, someone assembled the pieces. Someone looked at the available parts and said, this works. Appalachian origin story, Yale redemption arc, MAGA conversion, VP slot. Every element selected and sequenced for maximum audience capture. The authenticity being sold is the product. The man behind it is the performer. But the audience paid anyway. With votes, with trust, with their economic interests handed over to a man performing their identity back at them. This is the performance economy. The boy band machine needed your concert ticket and your emotional surrender. It put strangers in coordinated outfits, called them brothers, and sold you the fantasy that their desire was real, and it was aimed at you. The political machine needs your vote and your willingness to stop asking follow-up questions. It takes a man with a private record that contradicts everything he says publicly, wraps him in the right origin story, and sells you the fantasy that he sees you. The transaction is identical. The disclosure never comes. The executives counted the money then. The donors are counting the votes now. You paid for a feeling. They sold you a production. And somewhere in an office, someone is handing out gifts and calling it love. Watch the pattern. Start asking better questions. Stop falling over and over for the same lie. Or a different lie. It's a different day. This is Keith, and Keith Speaks.